Internet Real ID is inevitable, especially for social media. Denying this might feel good, but it is a lie and you know it. What isn't inevitable is private companies having access to our public records. The best solution is a government authentication token that only verifies info. Thank you for that. Those are our two options, Asmon. Thank you for telling us that those are our options. So we go with the government or we go with private corporations, and we have to pick between those two. And Asmongold says the government would be a better solution. So, maybe he's right. But then you got Elon Musk weighing in here, and look how many views. 2.4 million views. You don't think the algorithm kicked this shit up to the top of the list? 314,000 impressions on the replies. Shit, dude. The government is much worse than any corporation, or you don't understand the government. Government is simply the most powerful corporation and with a monopoly on violence. Yeah, like private corporations don't do any violence. Isn't that what all these contractors are private corporations? And who's the one? Blackwater? They're like a mercenary group. Aren't they a private corporation? They do violence. I'd be fine with a third-party authentication token as well, Asmongold says. I just don't see how you reconcile the growing demand for online accountability in any other more constructive way. The U.S. isn't even bad compared to other places, especially in regards to speech regulation. It's just, it is really weird that he's saying, it's like, did anybody ask, bro? Did anybody ask you this? But he's coming out. He's got to give us his take on it. He's got to let all of his fans know what his position is. And then you have the obvious, hey, Grok, who's right here? I'm going to appeal to the God of the moral arbiter of truth here, Grok. Who's right between this dialectic that has been proposed to us, this bullshit dialectic of government or private entities? Here's the truth. The truth is that is a stupid distinction and actually doesn't even exist. The private sector and the public sector, the government and private companies, this kind of trying to say that these are two separate things, they are not different. They work together. They literally, Elon Musk is not in the government. He's not, has held no government position. And yet he almost, I don't want to say single-handedly, but him and his algorithm and him being on board with the MAGA movement got Trump elected. And then you see him walking around the halls of the White House, being next to Trump. And then here comes Doge, a government cutout to reduce fraud and abuse. All the while they're implementing a private company, which is Palantir, right? And all these OpenAI, all these AI companies. Anduril, that's another one that they're contracting. Well, they're not part of the government, but they're deeply tied to them, and they are being paid by the government, right? And then, you even get into Peter Thiel, who's basically backed by the CIA. And you have this stupid dialectic of, well, private corporations or the government, I don't know. Well, they're working together. They're working together. So I don't even understand here. It's just obfuscating. It's just not really what's happening, man. These people, it is the elite of the country are working, the public and private are working against our interests. They want you to fall in line or fuck off. That's really what they want. Now, all these people are they're all on committees together. They're all on boards of companies together. They are interchangeable, right? They go back and forth. And even though if they're professed to be, this is a private committee, this is a private company, this is private. This is not the government. They are absolutely being contracted by the government. So this is a stupid dialectic you're putting here. It's just like missing the point. And then it's just so funny and ironic that now you have the guy coming down to say, hey, AI, who's right here? The AI that Elon created, right? That X owns, to ask whether or not who's true here. GigaBear says we're not going to comply, period. You've already complied by providing your information to your ISP. If the government subpoenas your data, your ISP will give it to them. This is the same for every company because it's a law. For 99%. So he even acknowledges it. Worski coming in saying, usually you're on point, but holy shit, this is a bad take. I do think that Asmongold is a model, a Peter Thiel cutout. He maybe started out, people say, he started out 2008, he was streaming. He'd been streaming for a long time. Fine, that's fine. I'm not saying that he didn't start out as an organic actor, but I think over the years, I think that he is absolutely being used to further facilitate this kind of AI takeover. He wants to make arguments like this when he knows full well down here that Palantir and Doge and all these private companies have basically solidified themselves in the government. And there's an interesting quote that when I was reading this, I thought, this is like, Asmongold is offering up a compromise, right? That's what he's doing here. He's saying, well, it's inevitable. So it's either private companies have our data, or you just, maybe the government can just take it and there'll be an authentication token. And I'm like, this is just a compromise, right? A technological compromise. Uncle Ted Kaczynski, said in his manifesto, he talked about compromising with technology. And he said, it is not possible to make a lasting compromise between technology and freedom, because technology is by far more powerful social force and continually encroaches on freedom through repeated compromise. Imagine the case of two neighbors, each of whom at the outset owns the same amount of land, but one of whom is more powerful than the other. The powerful one demands a piece of the other's land. The weak one refuses. The powerful one says, okay, let's compromise. Give me half of what I asked. The weak one has little choice but to give in. Sometime later, the powerful neighbor demands another piece of land, and again, there is a compromise, and so forth. By forcing a long series of compromises on the weaker man, the powerful one eventually gets all of his land. So it goes in the conflict between technology and freedom. And that's absolutely what they're doing here, right? They're creating these compromises, and that's what I said about Doge. People say, okay, we'll elect MAGA, we'll elect Trump to get rid of fraud and abuse. Well, here's the compromise. We're going to bring in Palantir and these overarching AI technologies and side with them to do that. And it's like 1 inch is gone. Now, Asmongold's coming out and saying, well, now we need to have IDs, government authentication IDs on the internet for everybody. Another one moved. Well, because you don't want the private companies to have that, right? It doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's all connected. Palantir's already in our government. These people have already been, JD Vance is he's literally a stooge of Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel is a stooge of the CIA. So it's like one off, man. But I just think they're going to be you're going to see more of this stuff. You're going to see more of this stuff in the future. More people, more influencers online are going to be pushing for stuff like this, talking about technology, talking about AI, talking about, well, maybe we should do this. And it's all to kind of get you and get their audiences on board with this shit later on. Asmongold, I like this one. Asmongold for some reason has a lot of pro-government takes, more regulations, more government rules, as if that would fix things. It's weird. It is weird. That's the annoying thing. He says he sees it coming. That's one of the annoying things, is when people live in the is. I live in the is. But they're never going to say an ought. Should this be the case? Should that be the case, that the government has total control over us in this way? He never seems to do that. He just talks about what is the case. And it is the case, and that's just what it is, man. And you're like, what? Like, why don't you have like an ideal or like a future of what you think it should be? That was my whole thing with the AI artwork when he did, was like, why don't you have more of a vision for humanity and how you want humans to operate in this ecosystem, rather than just saying, that's just it, man, that's the way she goes. Be complacent, fucking poor little white kid living in your basement. Be a complacent stooge and just take it. He's a fucking plant, true. Always has been. Did you know that Asmongold and Mr. Beast belong to the same talent agency, and that they are both directly connected to Disney and Amazon? Today I learned that a company named Night Media literally manages basically every single Zoomer E-celeb, including Hassan Piker, Nico Lowell, Dream, and these guys. If you ever look at the YouTube trending tab, at least one of Night's talents will be up there. Is that true? Influential is an AI social data and conversion technology, as well as a developer partner of IBM Watson and a Facebook marketing partner, utilizing a network of over 1 million social media influencers as a tactic for distribution. Influencer runs both native and paid campaigns on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and YouTube for Fortune 500 brands. Influential is owned by Jeremy Steinberg. Okay, dude. Night Inc. is directly funded by the Chernin Group, aka TCG, and one of its executive members being Alexandra Moore, a former exec from Amazon, who focus on mergers and acquisitions. However, TCG itself is financed by Providence Equity, an ECG-compliant private equity investment firm valued at over $30 billion. So is he managed by these people? I don't know. Is this true? I mean, like, because if that shit's true, like, these private equity groups, man, they do control a lot of the narrative and what's going on. You'll find out a lot of these a lot of these AI companies that we talk about are being paid by one of the numerous venture capital firms that Peter Thiel owns, like Founders Fund or Mithril or whatever, which actually, funnily enough, JD Vance worked at Mithril Capital. These institutions they have, which are private, like I said, they're private firms. They're not government guys, but they work with the government and they work and put people in positions to influence the culture and eventually influence the democratic process as much as it can be influenced. And then they even have their guy in the White House now. So it's like, even then, the guy who JD Vance worked at Mithril Capital, Peter Thiel's venture capital firm, is now in the White House. So it's like, okay, you don't think there's anything going on there still? People just need to be wary of this shit. They need to just like take a second. Don't just ingest the content, people. Like, think about what's happening. Think about what they're saying. Think about the emotion and the feeling of what they're saying and where they're directing you towards. This post, which he even admitted, is like, well, they do work together, but go with a government token. He even admitted, well, the private and public sectors work together, but so like it's a distinction without a difference.